Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malacara.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of That's What She Said with me. I'm that girl, Christiana Malacara, and each and every week we spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region here in Michigan. Thank you for tuning in, and I know I say it every week, but I really do. I appreciate all of the listeners and the viewers and all of the feedback, all of the reviews, all of your input, the emails, the messages. It really does help us at That's What She Said just provide top-notch content for you. It's about giving back. It's all about giving back, is contributing to the community in the way of passing along advice from women here in the Great Lakes Bay region. So with that being said, we can listen. How can you listen? So if you are watching me, if you can see my face, then you are most likely on social media. So it'd be YouTube or Facebook on a Thursday at 1:30. Radio waves, the best way to tune in is on Saturdays or Sundays at 100.5 and 790 WSGW. So on Saturdays, it'd be a Saturday morning for my early risers at 8 a.m. And then on Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, just when you're, mellowing down and winding down before that Monday, listen in on a Sunday. Kind of kick off your week. And then you can also find us anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, which hopefully That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is up there on your favorites. So this week has just been a whirlwind of busyness, absolute busyness. And I've been getting asked this question a little bit more lately. I was on another friend's podcast, Courtney Garrett. She has a podcast called Entrepreneur and Me. And it seems like that's recycling out there again. So I'm getting a lot of questions asked personally about me. At the end of that, I'll kind of tell you at the end of that podcast with her, she says, Christiana, what is the piece of advice you'd pass along? And I was like, hey, girlfriend, that's my question. But the way that I answered was very clear and distinctive. What I said was, do what you need to do today so you can do what you want to do tomorrow. And this is something that I've lived on since I was, 13, 14, 15 years old, is, that mindset of saying, I need to do this so I can do these things that I wish to do later. And this week somebody challenged me and was like, but when do you ever figure out the end of the path of, did you get to what you wanted? And then it set me back. I was like, oh gosh, when am I done doing the things that I need to do? And that struck me, and I didn't have an answer for this person. And so I have to rethink my advice, which is okay. I've been living along this advice for some time, but the idea of evolving and, being fluid in life and saying, maybe this piece of advice is for now, but not for later, or this piece of advice is for this chapter and not the next. So I am thinking, I'm spinning my wheels. And if you have any input on that, leave it in the comments. Email me, and we can chat about it, because I'd really love to know your opinion. Also in the comments on the That's What She Said Facebook page, I'm going to leave my new email address. We had some changes here at Alpha Media, so I will leave that for you and update that information. That is enough of me. We are here for a much more important reason. I have a wonderful guest today who is a new friend, a dear friend, and someone I am holding close to my heart. We have Sabrina Fung. Hi, Sabrina.
Hello. It's great to be here.
I'm happy.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you across the mic from me. Normally we are across from each other, but drinking coffee.
Yes. I love those cafe chats.
Yes. They're we'll just say matcha's good.
Yes. I'm a matcha lover, so.
Yeah. I
through and through.
I think you're the one that introduced me. And
yes.
You have, said something. I was like, all right, let's try it.
Yes.
And and I'm going to bring Jonathan Dent to the conversation. He calls it grass water, whatever. It was delicious. It got me
for
through
everybody.
the day. So Sabrina, how might the community know you?
So some people might know me from I work at Hemlock Semiconductor. I work in the commercial department. So some people around the area might know me for seeing me around over there. I also contribute to a lot of volunteer events to give back to the community through sponsorships from Hemlock Semiconductor events. So people might have seen me from Pride festivals. People might have seen me from any school events such as robotics events. I've been there too. And I've also been to middle schools and high schools to help out and kind of teach them about what I do and inspire them about this is what, a big girl job looks like. And you could be like me. And just inspiring. I've also inspired young girls to, I've told them about my career and how I started off. And so that I've been given a lot of those wonderful opportunities from Hemlock Semiconductor to kind of share my story and, kind of share it to the rest of the people in the community and girls who eventually will reach the stage of trying to find a job and, let them know about, this is a path for them to take. And if it's interesting to them, it's definitely doable. I mean, I'm here now.
So what is your title?
So my title, it's the Solar Market and Business Development Analyst. Solar market, essentially I do a lot of market research for the solar space, for the solar energy space. There's a lot of policies that I have to learn about. There's a lot of nuances on how things are changing in the market that I have to learn about, trade information I have to learn about. And then there's also business development side. I do a lot of prospecting. Whenever we get any inquiries for a company, usually people might know, they might see my name as an email that goes out back to them, like, thank you for reaching out. So whenever there's an opportunity or a lead that goes to us, I'm usually the first front face to kind of let them know, like, hey, thanks for being interested in us and what kind of product would you like? So that's kind of a dual role there that I'm kind of thankful for, and it's been aligned with my studies as well.
So you said dual role.
Yes.
So you see it as kind of two distinctive parts because, we're here going out into the community, and then the other part, you're here communicating with businesses.
Yes.
Those are two very different audiences that you're addressing.
Yes.
Is there one that you prefer over the other? Or comes more natural?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, I think both are pretty natural. I've always seen myself as a girl who really is, I find it pretty easy to talk to many people and easy for me to communicate with many people. So, but I do love talking to the community a lot. I love being there and being a beacon and supporting other people and helping them reach their goals as well. So I love talking and hearing other people's stories a lot. But even in a corporate world, I love talking to people and telling them about, business objectives, and this is what we do, and this is how we can achieve it, and kind of being a planner in that way. So both are really good, in my opinion. I like that it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that is. It really is. So you said this aligns with your studies. What did you study and where?
I studied business administration. So bachelor's in business administration, and we get to choose a concentration. So you could choose marketing, you could choose finance, you could choose business analytics. I chose information systems. So that's kind of a different subset where it's more technology focused other than just business itself. It's how does technology help the business. And I also studied in California, actually. So I'm not from the Great Lakes Bay region. I moved here about a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, I moved here. So I've been here for quite a while. My first winter was quite a funny story. I was like, oh boy, why is it so cold? But
okay. So I love the fact that you came here. First of all, thank you.
It was great to just even be able to meet everybody and be able to have you as a connection as well. It's great to get to know you, and it's been an amazing time for being here.
So what made you take that leap? Because when you moved here, you told me you really didn't know anyone.
Yes. Honestly, in college, I actually, for the whole of my life, I've always seen myself as an adventurous person. I've never been afraid of, I guess, going away from where I grew up. Even I've seen that when I was a little girl, actually, when I grew up, and I grew up in the Bay Area. So in the San Francisco Bay Area, I grew up in that area, so more of a city girl, but in the South Bay Area, specifically in San Jose, that's where I'm from. But yeah, even growing up as a little girl, I've always been the type of person who loved to travel, loved to get out there, loved to get out of where I grew up in that little Bay Area bubble, as so Californians call it. But yeah, I've always from the start known that I am not too afraid of getting out and wanting to see what it's like for the rest of the area in college. If anybody knows the geography of California, the North Bay Area, or the Bay Area in general, and Southern California are pretty far apart from each other. They are, I guess, on a good day it could be 7 hours, but on a bad day it could be 10 hours. So it's quite the drive. So when I went to college, I went to Southern California, and that was a little taste of being a little bit outside of where I grew up.
And so when you got the job offer here in Michigan,
Yes,
you were just like, okay, let's do it. Let's
Yes.
move across the country.
Yes.
And you're young, you're adventurous. You just
Yes.
picked up and came. So when you were here, when you finally just, started unpacking your boxes here in Michigan, was there any type of, doubt or fear, or was it just all excitement?
Oh, of course. I think it comes with there's double feelings that come with, I think, a move in general. For me, there's that fear of, will it work out? Will I be able to get my landing when I move to this area? Will I be able to find people that I'll be able to hang out around and find connections with and socialize with? Will I be able to have that social life getting away from where I grew up?
Do you think you did?
I do. I definitely think that I made a lot of great connections here.
How did you do that? Like if we have a listener who is in a similar situation, maybe not from across the country, but just took that leap and already are putting themselves in a situation they might or a location they might not be familiar with, what is some tips or advice that you would pass along to her to say, this is how you find your community?
I definitely would say going from a career perspective, networking events definitely helped me a lot with trying to find people who are kind of in the same phase as me and, getting into the career world, but, young professionals. So it was nice being able to network with others and relate to others and their paths and be like, oh yeah, I've just started my job as well, and getting to know them. That's definitely been helping with, finding people that I can align with and, grow my network with as well. But at the same time, I'd say if you want to move anywhere as well, make sure that the company that you're with has people that you love being with, being around. For example, I've met great friends from my company too. And now that, career shifts have changed and not all of them are in the same area anymore, I still get to meet up with them, and they've kind of been my network as well. They're my friends now. It's great to be with them and hang out with them whenever we get to have some free time together. But that would be my best advice for trying to find a community when you move.
So just continuously kind of put yourself out there.
Yes. Continue to show up. Yes. Show up and put yourself out there, and don't be afraid. I mean, there's been multiple times where I've said yes to an event and I'm like having second thoughts of, oh no, what if I don't really like going to this event? What if I don't find anybody there that, I can really connect with? And I just am like, well, that's the worst that can happen.
Okay.
So that's okay. And
so how does it turn out?
Reaffirm. And it always turns out better than I thought. It's
Go
crazy.
figure.
Yeah, it's crazy what the mind can do to you, how it can just kind of self-sabotage you. And it's good to recognize, hey, I'm having these thoughts and that's totally valid, but, it could be so much better, instead of thinking what could go wrong, it's what could go right. So I think that's definitely been a motivating factor for me to just show up more often.
I like that piece of advice.
Yes.
To kind of, switch your mindset and say, well, what can go right? And focus on that and then go do the thing.
Right.
And this sounds like it's worked out. I mean, you stayed through winter.
I have. I just kind of just giving yourself a positive mindset and giving yourself positive reaffirmations. That's such an important key, because I think every decision that you make is mainly what you feed yourself and your thoughts and how you control your thoughts. It's a lot about, if you're having doubts, that's totally valid, but how do you combat those thoughts and how do you tackle them if you want to do this specific thing or go to this specific event or meet some specific people that, you might have not know much about yet?
Do you have affirmations that you use daily?
Yes. So I tell myself a lot of multitudes of things. One of them is, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, things will be okay. You can come back through anything, it's not the end all be all. If you have something go wrong, you can always bounce back from it. I try to tell myself there are moments in your life where, yeah, maybe not every single thing that you show up to goes the way that you expected, but that's kind of like a growing factor for you. You'll be able to learn from that. And from there forth, you'll just get better at it over time. And kind of like a training mechanism to tell myself, hey, whatever happens, kind of just learn from it. It's a learning experience. Everyone has different phases of life, and not everybody has the same path in doing things, and this is where you're at right now, and just like make the most of it, and whatever happens kind of happens, and just kind of make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. I also think that the way that you answered that is very much information systems way.
Yeah.
So that trial and error.
Yeah.
Like let's just see what happens if we do this little change. Oh, wow, it actually worked.
Yes,
okay. So now we have new data to run after.
Right.
That this might actually work. So
yeah. So kind of like experimenting, like, hey, if I just showed up to this event, what would it be like? And I've never experienced this before, but hey, I'm just going to show up and see what it's like. And kind of just, yeah, I guess from an information systems perspective, it is kind of like trial and error and researching if this will go right.
Well, let's take a little pivot here. I have Sabrina Fung with me, and she is at HSE doing her, quote, big girl job.
Yes.
Right. A portion of your job is going out into the community.
Mm-hmm.
And, this whole concept of women in a field that's not predominantly women, women in the STEM world, women, in taking these big girl jobs, air quotes, at a younger age than maybe traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on those things?
I think, honestly, my thoughts on that is, yes, maybe not traditionally. This is a women predominant field that most of the people that I see is usually men that are in this type of field. And, in corporate, you get a lot of male predominant roles that you get to see. But I try to not let that consume me too much. And honestly, what really motivates me is just hearing other women's success stories of, hey, they became a leader. They became, now they're the VP of, this department or this company, and they did it. Why can't I? We're all human, and they all started at some place, and they all, whether it be networking or just showing up every day and trying your best. It doesn't have to be, your best. Your best could look different every single day, but at least knowing that you tried your best for that consistently each time and making those decisions, I think that is definitely what I think is, hey, this is possible if other women have done this before, and at least if I show up and try my best every day, maybe I could do this too. And I try to combat those feelings of there's so many men out here that like are able to do these roles, and I'm a woman, and I see that there are differences, and, I might not have as much of a head start as they might be perceived to be, but, it's still possible. Women have done this before. How can I learn from them? How can I hear about their story and see what have they done, and how can I mold that into my path?
Yeah. Mold it into your path.
Mm-hmm.
You said your best could look different every day. Like it just,
yes.
One day we're working at 30% and this is the best I can give.
Yes.
But then other days, I don't know, it might be the matcha talking, but like
right.
You're working at 110% here,
mm-hmm.
and being okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the hardest step right there.
Yes.
Is acknowledging, like you said, acknowledge it and come to the realization of like, this is okay because I still showed up.
Right.
Right.
I still did my best that day for as much as that could be.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really like where this conversation's going, because we had another guest in the past who was in a field. I think it was the agricultural field, and she kind of approached it a little differently. I mean, maybe not with as much finesse, but the optimism was there of,
Right.
you know, why can't I do this? Why
Yes.
not? You know, nobody's told me no yet. And if they
Yes.
have, I'm the only person in my way to stop me.
Right.
And the way that you're approaching this is, there's other women that have done this before. Let me look to them as guidance almost,
Right.
you know, like, what's the playbook? Did it work for
Right.
you? Okay, let me make my adjustments.
Right.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, but then you're around here going into classrooms now.
Yes. So I'm here now. It's crazy. It's amazing to be able to inspire, younger girls on, what path they can take and careers and everything. It's honestly been an amazing journey, and I'm glad to speak on it, that I've been able to participate in those events. But yeah, a lot of the things that I get to tell about is, what have I done? How did I get here? Where did I start off? And then, advice I can give to people that, or, young women or young girls that
youth
basically. Youth that are still in school. How do they get to this point?
Wow. Well, this is everything that I wanted to hear and more. Women empowerment to the core here. We have Sabrina Fung, and we just covered a whole lot. But in this, in the next half of That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara, we're going to talk a little bit more about what she's providing as far as information to inspire the next generation and who inspired her. So we're going to take a quick break, go grab your matcha, and then come right back to the second half of That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
Hi, and welcome back to the second half of That's What She Said. We have a good friend of mine, Sabrina Fung, and she's doing some really cool things out in the community. In a community that's now her home. I'm going to call it home because you're sticking around with me, girlfriend. Sabrina here is from California. And yes, she came to our snow globe state. When you had your first winter here, what were your thoughts?
Okay, so it was really interesting. One, I was a little bit scared. I was like, I've never lived in the snow before. How am I supposed to do this? I grew up somewhere where I did not have snow at all in the winters. It's just sunny, and it kind of just feels like it gets into fall, and then it just stays as fall for winter, and then you go into spring again. So we just don't have that winter really.
Yeah, whatever.
But it was an interesting change. Definitely, like I said, the cold surprised me, but I've learned that layering goes a long way. The type of coat that you have goes a long way. So much that I didn't know, that like just what you wear goes a long way.
Can you drive in it?
So I'm getting better at it. I try to turn really slow, but there are times where I'm like, oh, I feel my car kind of slipping a little bit, and I'm like freaking out kind of in my head, but I'm like, this is fine, but I'm getting better.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's really, that's funny. That's funny to me. I grew up in Michigan, you know? So, and I lived on the other side of the state where there was a whole lot more snow than here. And, so it's always fun to hear this. But fall is wonderful here.
It's beautiful.
Yes,
I think it's my favorite season here. If it's not, I've always been a summer girl, and I think I will be always through and through. But I think ever since being here and actually seeing what a true autumn is like, I think I love autumn as my second favorite season now. I'm like, wow, this is gorgeous. I love all the colors.
So what, other than autumn, what are some of the things that kind of drew you to making the decision to be here? And did you gain support from your family back home?
I did. For the most part, I did. I did have, as as a family would be, they would miss me, and they were saying that they'd miss me. So that came along with it, but they knew that this was the right decision for me at the moment for me to take, and it would help me out with my career. It would help me out with just, starting off that path for myself to self-sustain myself and, experience life while I'm young as well by moving out somewhere far and getting to know what it's like. And my family was like, yeah, go for it. We understand. Well, we'll miss you, but we understand why you're doing that.
Wow.
And my sister, I think I'm going to just call her out here because she did a lot for me for that stage. She was probably my biggest supporter in that moment. I kind of did a similar path as her, just a little bit later. She went to college in the Midwest. She, of course, we grew up together, so she came from California, and then she moved to go to University of Wisconsin-Madison. And then from there, she moved to Minnesota after graduating. And so from there on, she's just stayed in the Midwest. So a lot of her giving me advice and helping me out through the whole way, and telling me that I can do this, and giving me that extra positive affirmation really helped me make that jump and built that confidence in me.
Reassurance.
Yes, a lot of reassurance.
Because you knew you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, that doubt that everybody kind of experiences is,
Right.
That small tidbit of imposter syndrome is like, I could do this, but can I?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's someone who's poured into you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else that, we were talking about professionally that you've looked up to turn around and say, yeah, I can do this?
Yeah. So I definitely have seen, well, usually what I do when I think about women who are in, these big business roles and they have leadership roles, I kind of just, honestly, I'll be so honest, I Google search women's stories of leadership people in this corporate role that I'm interested in, and then I read about their story. I literally just read about their story, and if I can find information on things that they've shared before to their community, I read about it and see, like, what have they done? How did they get there? What
These
was
are
their
strangers.
path? Yeah, these are strangers, but I kind of get inspiration from them in a way, like just learning about, these women do exist out there, but, maybe I've never actually met them before, but I know that, this still exists. People have done this before. So therefore, why can't I do this too?
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because usually when I ask that question, it goes a different way.
Yeah.
So you find inspiration by like a Google search, and
it's
you
crazy.
Find someone who's in a similar field.
Yes.
And then you've never met them. Have you ever introduced yourself to some of these people, or
I have not. I honestly, I just kind of try to find people who have a similar story as me, and then I, relate to them, and then I'm like, okay, well, they kind of did the same thing as me. They had this interest in going into this field, and then they moved all sorts of different roles in many different areas. How did they do that? And so I kind of just take inspiration off of that, aside from family as well. I grew up in a family that has always told me to achieve my dreams. And my mother has also been kind of a role model for me too. She's been in management roles as well. And so I've felt that, if my mom can do it as well, I can do it. So kind of having that family that to look up to as well was another part to help me with making these jumps and making these decisions.
And now, I mean, just to be frank, now you're this person for youth in the area of an area that you were, newly invested your life and your time to. And now you're pouring into students and saying you can do this too.
Yes.
How does that make you feel? And what kind of feedback are you receiving from youth?
It makes me feel really thankful to be able to be so fortunate to explain these stories back to the youth and inspire them as well. I feel really thankful to be inspiring them and being able to share to them my story. I hear a lot of stories of how did you get here? From a place that's a faraway state, how did that happen? And it's great to tell them about that and, let them know like, hey, whatever you want to do, it's totally possible. You don't have to limit yourself to anything or anywhere, and any type of limitation, it can be possible. So that's usually what I tell the youth about, and they're always interested that I came from far away.
So what age groups of students are you talking to?
I usually have talked to middle schoolers or high schoolers.
When you're having conversations with them, is there, I guess, what are things that you found as a challenge for them that you're like, maybe that wasn't a challenge for me?
So I would say a challenge for them is just probably in the fact of them not knowing what type of opportunity they want. I mean, I feel like that's something that happens a lot of the times when you're growing up, what do I want to be? I don't even know what type of options there are for me. And so a lot of the things that I think that they think about is the fact that, they're not they don't totally know about what's going on, about opportunities and what they want to do. And I think it's just good to just inform them like, hey, there's so many options for you out there, so many different roles, and you can even mold your role into the type of work that you want to do as well. So
sometimes they don't even know the opportunity.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know, right? And you were fortunate to have your older sister.
Yes.
And it sounds like that was a whole blessing within itself, and then the support from your family. So I guess generationally, what I've seen is and you are a people-y person. In the first segment, we were talking about it. And you called yourself, you'd like to think of yourself as a beacon to others. When we're in the classroom with students, talking about, this is a field that you can get into, especially these youth girls. Do you ever see their hesitation?
I do see some sort of fear of, will it work out? They don't always vocalize it at the moment because, I'm not too sure if they're, that comfortable with vocalizing it out to me, but I can sense that sometimes there's some kind of a silence that happens, like, oh, okay. Like, but it doesn't feel like they don't fully know exactly that type of path that they could do for themselves. And so it's interesting.
So hesitation.
Yeah.
When you were that age, did you think that you would be doing what you're doing today?
I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I would have been able to know exactly what type of role I would have gotten today. I mean, I know I had interests, and a lot of those interests came with giving back to the community. A lot of those interests came with being a people person. A lot of those interests came with, I would say I'm both creative and an analytical person at the same time. So I knew I wanted something along those lines. I didn't fully know I didn't fully know what type of role I wanted up until maybe later years of high school and then college. I started narrowing down on everything. So growing up as like a young child, I knew at some point I did want to be a leader of some sort. That was like, okay, I've always looked up to the fact that my sister is very career oriented. My mom has been very career oriented. I want to be like them as well, and I want to be as ambitious as well. So I could pinpoint that I wanted to be a beacon of some sort and a leader of some sort. And leader, not meaning I wanted to be a manager, but I wanted to uplift people, like be that lead for people to, be a helping hand to.
You're contributing to them as an individual in a positive way. And then also through HSC, you're contributing, to this greater good, right? In a positive way too, in the more communication with businesses perspective. So let's just say, for instance, we have parents who are listening and they have little ones, especially girls who are in that middle school, high school age that are just, hey, what do you want to do? We need to start thinking about these things, right? Especially towards the last couple of years of high school. What advice would you give that parent to help support their child as they're kind of, like you said, narrowing it down a little further and further?
Right. I'll tell the story of what my parents did to kind of explain how they were able to help me narrow it down. Essentially, they were like, let's have a career talk. Let's just talk about what are your interests, and not necessarily what type of roles you want, but what do you love to do for work, and just full transparency. Tell me anything that you'd like to do for what you see yourself doing in your work. And so I told them, I love being creative. I love making things. I love being in a team. I love being a people person and talking to people, and not always being in an office all the time, but also having moments where I'm able to go out and walk around and talk to other people, and whether that be a community or, events or anything like that. And so they were like, okay, that sounds very business oriented. And so we just had an open conversation where they asked me a lot of things. It kind of felt like not necessarily an interview because that's too formal, but they just asked me a bunch of questions to help me figure out what I exactly wanted to do. Because when I was applying for not job applications, for college applications, I was not too sure what I wanted for my major, because there was a whole list of majors I could choose from. And I'm like, I don't really know what half of these entail, what type of jobs I could get from them. And so kind of just going through that list with my parents and them explaining that what these are, and based on my interests, these are the ones that would align with me, helped me figure out and narrow down exactly what type of education I wanted and what type of career I could get out of it.
I mean, you said information systems was that kind of narrowed down, point.
Yeah, that came actually in the middle of college. At the start, it was marketing, because I told my parents I love being creative. I love producing things. I even told them I would love to make commercials someday at some point. So they were like, that sounds very marketing related, so you should study marketing. So I generally applied to business because I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to fully do marketing yet. So business had the option to choose marketing as your subset. So I chose business administration as my career. And I was like, okay, from there on, I'll discover if I want to really, really hone on in either marketing or something else. But it wasn't until I took one information technology class with business applications where I was looking at it, and I guess also growing up in my background in the tech world in Silicon Valley, I was very much, I knew that there was so much tech around me, and I guess that kind of shaped me into my interests, as well as being able to see what type of careers that tech could have. That also piqued my interest.
Knowing your options.
Right, knowing the options. And so being able to get that exposure, and then once I took that class, I was like, actually, this is not too bad. I actually quite like it.
You tried it.
Yeah, I tried it.
You went out, there we go, with that whole,
I signed up for that class, and I was like, actually, this is actually not too bad. I think I could do this. And so I kind of just found that niche that applied to me, and I was like, I'm going to go for that one instead.
Wow. Yeah. You, like we just said in the first segment again, was what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
You're going to lose a couple credits here. You've learned something out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst that could happen. You learn something out of it. So, taking that jump, having faith in yourself. But the piece of advice that you had given to parents was to sit down with your kid and just have an open conversation.
Right.
I really like that idea.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not really an interview, but maybe it's like a parent job fair.
Right.
Like, because they know.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, having a conversation like that, just family, and not, talking to somebody who, maybe they'd learn about that or have that conversation in school.
Mm-hmm.
Talking that with your family, it's a safer space for them to be more open, and for them to maybe, in my perspective, when I was at that age and having that conversation with my parents, I listen to them more because they know me more than somebody at school might know. Yeah, exactly.
An advisor.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. So, I'm gonna ask, what do you think is next for you? Like, what is on your radar, on the scope? Because you're just starting out, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, what do you see in your future here?
In my future, oh man, I would love to, like I said, be a leader someday where I'm in some type of leader role, whatever that might look like. Whether that be me being a leader of a company, being a leader of a type of, maybe I start a business someday. That's something that I've always kept my options open for. Like, maybe if I have a business idea, maybe I'll do that. But I've always thought, no matter what throughout my career, I would always love to just give back to the community. That's one of my values, my core values. And
why do you think that is?
I honestly, growing up in a world that has so much going on with, a lot of hardships happen in the world, and growing up in a time where a lot of things have maybe separated a lot of communities in specific ways, it kind of shaped me into having this value of, I would love to be some type of beacon to bring communities together and contribute together. So honestly, I think it's just the type of upbringing and the environment of what has happened throughout my life has kind of ingrained those values in me of giving back to the community. Feels like it's very impactful, and it feels like it brings good to the world. And I've always wanted to be able to do that and be that type of person who gives back.
You mentioned that that's a moral of yours.
Mm-hmm.
What is something else that you live by?
I've always lived by, honestly, the other part that we were talking about is, as long as I'm doing my best every day, that's enough. I try my best to keep in check with myself with how I'm doing, and prioritize my not only physical health, but mental health as well. That's another value that I have of, if I'm not feeling okay, then that's totally valid. And I think that's every right to feel the way that I feel and take care of myself and put myself first for that. So that's another value that I have, where if I'm mentally not feeling like I'm having maybe the greatest day, I will have that self-care time. I will set up some time in the week, and I will have that self-care time to just take care of myself so I can be better the next week.
Prioritizing yourself.
Right.
To have a better day the next day. So like I said, from that 30% one day,
Right.
I showed up, but I'm acknowledging the fact that I'm not maybe that, 50, 75, 100. So how is it that you do that for yourself?
A lot of it is kind of just tapping into what I want to do right now, whether it be listening to music, or talking to friends from back home that maybe I haven't talked to in a while, and maybe, having great conversations with them. That's also another self-care that I could do. Also, I like to sometimes do quote unquote home spa days to take care of myself and relax my mind. Also listening to motivational videos, podcasts, consuming positive energy. And
what's your favorite podcast? You don't have to say mine. It's fine.
I actually don't know if I could hone in on one favorite. I kind of scatter around listening to many different types of podcasts. But a lot of the times, most of the things that I consume in terms of trying to recharge myself would be motivational videos, and kind of just tapping into my hobbies as well as another self-care thing.
I love that idea. Just one quick piece of advice that you would pass along to women in the Great Lakes Bay region.
Yes. Okay. One piece of advice. I would say definitely, if you want to do something and you're having doubts about it, I think acknowledge that it's totally valid to have those doubts, but definitely, try to show up. What's the worst that could happen? Definitely try to show up. Combat those thoughts as much as possible, because, what's the worst that could happen, for one, and if anything, if anything that could come out of it could be something that could possibly be a pivotal moment in your life, like that could happen by just showing up to that event or showing up to that
just
moment.
show up. I
Right.
love that piece
Right.
of advice. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for being on that, for being on and passing along that advice. And thank you everyone who is tuning in. That is Sabrina Fung, and that's